Hello and welcome to Views on News. I'm Jawad Tehami. There is an important presser. The Finance Minister Aurangzeb today addressed and talked about a number of important issues regarding 150,000 vacant posts in federal government. He said that have been eliminated, and also saying that the services related positions are being outsourced. The steps are also being taken to reduce the government spending. He has also talked about the usefulness of the institutions and the ministries, saying the work is being carried out regarding understanding the usefulness of 43 ministries and also 400 departments, and 5 to 6 departments will be eliminated at a certain specific time. And he has also talked about the committee that was formed by Prime Minister in June for the right sizing of the federal government. The terms of reference of the committee are aimed at reducing the federal government expenses, and also in its scope there are 45 ministries and also 400 affiliated institutions. He has also said this particular process will be completed in next 6 months. This particular process of right sizing of the federal government, and the working to reduce the federal government expenditure of 900 billion rupees is also underway. We'll be taking the analysis regarding as to the right sizing of the government, how crucial that is, what could be the possible strategies in that particular regard from our esteemed panel of guests. Also, Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif told the federal Cabinet that the President of the United Arab Emirates, His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, has deferred the repayment of $2 billion loan which was due in January. We'll also take that particular aspect up for discussion. Also regarding the electricity tariffs and prices, the Prime Minister said unless the cost of energy is brought down, our industry and exports cannot grow, and the government has come up with 2 to 3 different options to reduce the electricity prices, which shall be implemented at the earliest. The Prime Minister went on to say that we will have to approach the International Monetary Fund for the negotiations in this particular matter. These aspects also are for discussion in today's show. For that, we are honored to be joined in the studio by Dr. SHUJAT FAROOQ, Chief of Research at Pakistan Institute of Development Economics. Dr. FAROOQ, thank you very much for your time, for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. Also in the studio, we are honored to be joined by Mr. ABDUL Jaleel, Senior Economist. Mr. Jaleel, thank you very much for your time. Also for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. Dr. FAROOQ, let's talk about the right sizing of the government. A committee was formed of the Prime Minister in June as per the Finance Minister. The terms of reference of the committee are aimed at reducing the federal government expenses. So let's specifically talk about the need of the right sizing of the federal government. What had been the challenges that brought this particular issue to the fore, and the authorities are now not only thinking but also actively working in order to go about in that particular direction?
Thank you. Thank you, Jawad. If you look the federal administration, it have 3 components. One is the federal ministries and departments, and there are 53 ministries. Practically they are around 43 administrative ministries, because you can see there is High Court, Supreme Court, NAB, etc. Second component is attached department, and as Finance Minister has told, there are around 400 attached departments. And third component is autonomous bodies, like my institute PIDE is autonomous body under Planning Commission, and there are currently around 206 autonomous bodies in the federal government. Okay. The total strength in these 3 federal components, that is around 1.8 million. So it's a huge employment. And if you look, for example, over the last 20-25 years, we have few main challenges in the federal government. First, you can see that there was 18th constitutional amendment, and lot of that components like education, health, they were devolved and given to the provinces. But unfortunately, the employees, they remained on the umbrella of federal government. They were not handed over to provinces. So these surplus, that pool of employees, they were adjusted in other ministries. Yeah,
that is a very interesting
and you can
fact that you shared. But if the devolution happened, and specifically talking about health and education, if they were devolved towards the provinces, so I mean, what's the logic of having the employees under the federal government?
I think this was the unfinished, I think, yeah, you know, that unfinished devolution at the provincial level, where authority, resources, they were devoluted, but you know that the responsibility like employment, etc., that was not devoluted. Second, I think if you look the data from 2010 to 2020, that is another interesting thing, that in 2010, you know, that in federal ministry there were around 500,000 employees, and right now they are around 672. So you know that from 2010 to 2020, this employment should decline ideally, but
why should it decline?
For example, employment in these ministries. But you know that again we hired
ideally,
more
how
people.
should it decline?
Because I think because after 18th constitutional amendment, lot of ministries, they were abolished. So ideally, you know that there should be less employment, but we hire more employment. We added around 1,72,000 people. So I think
for a time span of
from 2010 to 2020.
Okay, in
So
10
I think
years.
this is the real dilemma, where in this country we deal employment in public sector as part of social protection, that it is the job of the government to give employment. I think it is not the job of government to give employment. Let the private sector to come and create the employment, rather than government create a sludge. For example, if you go in Gilgit-Baltistan and in Azad Kashmir, 45% of the household, they have at least one government employment. So huge, you know, that government is spending right now around 3 trillion money, and pension bump is now exceeding to more than 1 trillion. So these are the major factors due to which I think a major surgery, a major overhauling is required, where we require an efficient government that contribute in service delivery, rather than we just create jobs. And you know that in one study of PIDE, we have calculated that hiring one employee in grade 17, that would be state burden of around 245 million. So we have to
245 million
yeah,
rupees per
over his entire tenure.
Okay.
That could be his salary, pensions, and other operating cost.
Right. I'll come back to you. You've talked a number of important points over here. Also talked of the importance of the private sector. Mr. Abdul Jaleel, what have been the challenges? What has actually made the authorities to go about it, right sizing the size of the government?
You know, right sizing and the short sizing, they go hand in hand together, number one. Secondly, I would like to say, it is always said that the least government is the best government, you know, because the job of the government is only to act as a regulator, number one. And number two, the running expenses of the government of Pakistan was increasing every day due to heavy induction of the government servant, and then the expansion of the government department as well. This, I mean, this was a major, I would say this was a major burden upon the national economy, which really calls for a reduction in its size as well.
Right.
Now the right sizing criteria depends upon, there is a one practical, you know, the way that the adoption of the zero budgeting system. You, for example, it is an exercise which is carried out, that if you don't give money to this such and such department, what would happen ultimately? This is an exercise mostly done all over the world. But unfortunately, Ministry of Finance, in our culture, it has not been carried out over the last many years.
So the Ministry of Finance stops paying to the other ministries?
No, they just
the zero budgeting system means what?
Before the money is allocated to the department through budgetary framework, they carry out an exercise theoretically, that if you don't give money to such and such department, to such and such activity, what would happen? You know, and it will raise a lot of questions. What would be its impact? Right, negative impact or positive impact. If there is a negative impact, for example, that can it be controlled by allocating this money to, you know, or placing this money under some other hats by merging two departments. For example, reproductive department of Ministry of Population Welfare and reproductive department of the Ministry of Health, they were simultaneously working together, and each one carries its own budgetary framework as well. Right. Now there was no sense in, you know, operating and using money through different channels. Why not to merge them together? So this is called overlapping of activities, budgetary activity, under various heads, to various ministries. So this is an exercise which was very important and delayed, and I think the government of Pakistan have ultimately decided to carry out this exercise, you know, and to bring about to review the performance of the organization and the various budgetary heads which are right now being followed, you know, under the charter of the heads. Now, secondly, right now there are about, if all inclusive, there are 400 to 500 spending unit of the government of Pakistan, spending unit. And I hope the government will be able to reduce it to 300 and 350 as well.
So if you
spending unit mean that now the ministries have carried, now you have to first differentiate between the various functions being performed by the ministry: primary function, secondary function, and the tertiary function. I think the primary function has to be performed, and wherever it is indispensable, secondary function should be performed. Primary function should contain policy making only, right? Secondary function should confine itself, partially to policy making and partially implementation. The tertiary function is tertiary function create an area in which we can exercise our jurisdiction, and we can hand over to the provinces, or for that matter we can hand over to the civil society organization. For example, NPOs, for example, I would like to say there are many hospitals, many good educational institutions which are working in private sector. The government of Pakistan should actually enter into a partnership deal with them, that if you to a certain extent provide services to people on a concessional basis, the government of Pakistan will, under this act of partnership, will provide you some monetary assistance and technical assistance as well, to train your staff and financial support, 10%, 20%, etc.
So by doing that, there is likelihood of a considerable reduction in the government spending.
Yes, it would reduce the government. So because
I'll come back to you for your detailed opinion regarding that. Let me bring in Dr. QAIS Aslam, senior economist, joining us on the phone line. Dr. Aslam, thank you very much for your time, for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. How do you look at this particular endeavor being undertaken by the incumbent government of right-sizing the federal government, with today's presser pointing that by 30th of June, this particular exercise of understanding the useful of at least 43 ministries is going to be completed? How do you look at that, and how badly it was required at this particular point in time? I think we've lost the connection with Dr. QAIS Aslam, and we'll try to reconnect with him. Dr. FAROOQ, you already talked about the private sector. Now, I mean, how there could be a strategy in order to go or invite the private sector in order to shift that burden of government spending from the government towards that, and also getting the maximum efficiency out of it?
Yeah. If you look the labor statistics of Pakistan, right now we have around 72 million people. They are in the labor market and they are employed. The government share is just 7-8% overall in employment. So that's not a too big share. So as Dr. Saab has said, that we have to parallelly move on right sizing as well as that efficiency. So efficiency here matters a lot. This is the good thing that, okay, for example, there are certain redundant posts, there are certain sanctioned posts that were not filled, so government is going to eliminate these 150 K posts. Second, we are going to merging and abolishing some ministries. So for example, if you look, for example, that the government job is service delivery. So for example, if we look the losses in state-owned enterprises, if we look the losses on power sector, etc., that all these losses were accumulated on the back of government ministries. So I would stress that we require an efficient ministries that would make efficient policies, because according to the 1973 rule of business, the primary function of the government is to devise policies. But unfortunately, for example, if you go in power ministry, we don't have any medium or long term policy that where we will stand in 2030. If we go, for example, in education, in health, same is the dilemma that we have offices, we have officers, but unfortunately we don't have the policies. So that's why if you look our cost of doing business, our ease of doing business, that is rising. We have lot of sludges, lot of NOCs we require, lot of permission. So that's why people are not investing on right way, for example, where they should have to invest. For example, look at our cities, lot of investment is coming, but we are creating slums. So same you can see the dilemma that we don't have any efficient transport policy that where our railway should go, where our, for example, PIA should go. So an efficient government definitely that will create the cushion where that if you ease the doing of business, if you reduce the cost of doing business, if you momentum the investment on the right track. For example, right now $32 billion investment that is coming in real estate, and that is totally dumping. That is not creating a comprehensive value chain. Same, for example, if you look, we have agriculture ministry, but still we are struggling with productivity. We are still struggling with that lower agriculture yield. So these policies would create momentum where a comprehensive value chain, supply chain, productivity, business growth that will lead new jobs for the people.
In that particular scenario, where does the role of the private sector come in?
Just we have to just we have to build the confidence of the private sector. For example, right now we have the SIFC. So SIFC is basically looking that foreign direct investment. If you look the statistics this year, we have comparatively good FDI as compared to the previous year. So now the role of the private sector is that we align our skills, we align our human resource, we align our research and development expenditure that create the jobs. For example, if we are looking that our IT sector should grow, right now our exports are just $2 billion, and we are expecting that in next few years we will go to $10 billion. So definitely that this is the question for the private sector, where warehouses, these sort of jobs that will link the market, universities, academia, and definitely we would have more jobs.
Right. Mr. Abdul Jaleel, when a finance minister talks about that the service related positions are being outsourced, what sense do you make out of that?
Outsourcing is a good idea because expertise, there was a time when expertise was available with the government only, But now the time has come with the dawn of this information technology that huge expertise available in every field in private sector. The government need not to hire those expertise out of its own budgetary framework. There are many firms which are working in private field, many companies, in corporate sector, they are working very successfully. Some of them have earned even a global reputation of working in a very effective manner and in a useful manner. So their role is recognized. The government of Pakistan must actually involvement in state building process as well through outsourcing some of the functions. And these functions...
outsourcing the functions or the positions, the service-based positions when he specifically talks about.
Yeah,
so how do we differentiate between the two?
Both of them. For example, in health ministry, in education ministry, you want to develop a policy on a primary education. So you need a data. In this respect, you need a data, and you have to carry out a massive public survey throughout the country. So you will need this. Here is a point when you can involve private sector. Private sector, and they will be very helpful in getting result about through their own facilities which are available throughout the country, and mostly public survey are done by the private sector as well. And the data retrieved so much, it can also be used for development of the policy by the privately owned company of consultant. We have been hiring, the government of Pakistan in knows they hired many consultants from the private sector. They develop reports, they develop taxation policy.
So by doing so, there happens to be a reduction in the spending?
Yes, they will, you know, they will develop a policy framework. They will also develop that how you are going to implement it. It involves many steps as well. You know, because the government service, certainly the private sector does not suffer or do not suffer many limitations as the government servant or the government departments is experiencing. So they can very liberally, freely can carry out exercise within their domain and get a good result as well. So I'm a very strong supporter of the involvement of the private sector in this, you know, activity of the nation building policy framework as well, number one. And number two, you know, Pakistan is one of those countries which is known as the eighth biggest, which is the eighth biggest charitable country, the country which is contributed massively towards charitable activity, and we occupy eighth status in the list of the charitable nation of the world. Now, what you see is that cash is available, the money is available with the people, expertise available in the people, but the question is that the legal framework is not available, that how to involve them in this process, in this scheme of nation building. And I personally believe that the government should create an NGO or regulatory framework specifically for carrying out social services in field of health, education, environment, and other domain of nation building. You know, and you will see a lot of people will give a response to it. Not only Pakistan, not only you will feel that our market will not respond, domestic market will respond to you, even the overseas Pakistani market will also respond to you. And the people will bring their own expertise, their own finances in order to give service to people of Pakistan as well as to the state of Pakistan. For example, as earlier on I have given you the example, like in a rural area, we can run many veterinary hospitals as well with the help of the private sector. What the government has to do is to give them a legal support for creation of such institution, and then give them a token financial support to them. By giving a token, you know, recognition, they will earn trust in the eyes of the people and the eyes of the bigger world organization as well, and they will also pool their resources as well. Right. This is the you know, this is a strategy which we have not adopted so far. Turkey is one country where almost 80-90% of universities are being financed through Waqf project, not by the government, Waqf project, and those Waqf are working since the time of Ottoman Empire. Since the working, and they are working very successfully as well. So, I mean, what I believe is that the people have got money.
Could you shed a little bit of more light regarding this particular experience of Turkey through the Waqf, that particular strategy? How does it actually function and operate?
For example, the government of Pakistan should create a non-governmental organization regulatory framework. And they should ask people, that those people who want to contribute, they should define the activity, you know, they should define the activity or the domain in which the private sector or NGO are supposed to work, starting from research, environment, to social infrastructure building, educational improvement, health improvement, etc., etc. You know, they should define all, they should define and identify the domain in which the public sector support is needed, private sector support is needed, right? And then they should ask them that we will register their organization if you are able to create such and such institution for providing service in such and such locality. And they should recognize that. Of course, this regulatory framework will put a lot of stipulation or condition upon them, that you need an expertise as well, you need a sufficient cash as well. And in return, the government, finance ministry has got already, they have got, there is a provision in finance ministry for recognition of such institution through certain token financial support system as well. And they are recognizing it. And they are giving financial support such as in Karachi, this kidney center is working very successfully, and it is giving free of service to everybody. Everybody knows this. So the government of Pakistan gives them annual grant to them. It's not a government department. It's a private sector organization, but it is working successfully. This model should be replicated to Ministry of Agriculture. For example, cattle breeding, or a goat breeding, this, and then the agricultural improvement of the agriculture implements, for example.
Right.
This is part of the agriculture engineering,
Right.
but the expertise is available, and even technicians are available. Likewise, we can take the modern, the sector of IT as well. So I would say that the potential of the Pakistani financier and expertise is not fully utilized.
Right, let me take these points to Dr. SHUJAT FAROOQ also. In the light of very comprehensive views by Mr. Abdul Jaleel, what's your understanding regarding as to when we try to compare the outsourcing of the functions of the ministries and those outsourcing of the service-based positions as Finance Minister has talked about?
If you look, we have an establishment division, and basic job of the establishment division is to provide an efficient HR pool to all the federal ministries as well as their attached departments. Unfortunately, still we are hiring lot of outdated jobs, and we are filling that, like for example stenotypist, draftee. And you know that there is one challenge. Challenge is that, for example, if there are 6,72,000 people in federal ministry right now, in officer category 17 to 22, there are only 37,000 people, and 6,34,000 people are in grade 1 to 16. This is the major challenge, that right now 90 to 93% of the federal government that is comprises on sporting staff,
that brings me to this particular question. Now, this is a huge chunk from 1 to 16. I mean, what are you going to do with that particular chunk? It is a huge chunk, 634,000, 1 to 16.
Yeah.
So if you're going to eliminate certain departments or try to check the usefulness of a certain ministry, where is this particular workforce going to go? What are the risks associated, and how to mitigate those?
Yeah, thank you. So, you know that this chunk has not emerged today. It emerged over the last 20-30 years, and you know that we faced one thing, and that is political populism. That mostly MNAs, MPAs, politicians, they usually, you know that they love to hire peons, clerks in their constituencies. So I think this outsourcing, it will create a stoppage to these sort of jobs, because you have the cost and benefit analysis. For example, you know that, for example, if you hire peon, and one peon would cost around 30 million over his lifespan. So rather than, you know that, let's outsource the jobs, let's monetize the perks. For example, you know that, for example, if rather than giving a car to an officer, if you monetize the perks, I think it would be far better beneficial for officer as well as the ministry for all these things. In 2012, you know that federal government, they monetize the perks of the cars, but unfortunately still officers are getting the cars, and they are also getting the, you know, that monetization. So this is, you know, that duality. So overall, I think let's move out of this pakki naukri concept in Pakistan, where, you know, that people join the government, and
that is the strategy that you think could be beneficial. Outsourcing could have a considerable impact in bringing that efficiency, getting the results right. What about that particular chunk that you have already yourself mentioned? What are the risks? What are you going to do with that particular workforce ideally? What could be the possible alternative mechanisms in order to address their issues as well at the same time?
So right now, you know that government is not firing these people. First, I think be assured, because I have listened the finance minister's speech, they are not firing this speech. First, what they have done, there were certain sanctioned posts, but they were vacant, and they have abolished that post. So you know that these people were not already, but there was chances that tomorrow some bureaucrats, some politicians, they might hire these, fill these posts. So first, you know that you should not be worried that 150,000 posts, most of them they were not filled. Second, government is opting the strategy that, for example, if you know that servant that would retire, we will not hire the people against that people. So right now I think there is no such risk that so we are offering certain golden handshake scheme through which, you know, that we will fire some 1 lakh people.
Right. So I was reading somewhere about a voluntary separation scheme. What is that? Could you shed a bit of light regarding that? Could that be also one of the options, the voluntary separation scheme?
This voluntary separation scheme was earlier, you know, that it was implemented in PTCL, it was implemented in HBL. So
where the golden handshake, it comes under its head?
It's just like golden handshake scheme, where, you know, that you offer the people a handsome amount and you offer them that, okay, go. And you know that if, for example, you offer an handsome amount, definitely lot of people, they might love to get the amount and go in private sector and invest and quit.
So, Mr. Abdul Jaleel, what could be the alternative mechanism regarding this particular voluntary separation scheme? What could be the possibilities in that regard?
You know, when you carry out a census, or when you carry out a estimation of those employees who are not skilled, unskilled, mostly they perform just an office job or office management as well, and there is a large majority of them as well. We do not actually put them in category of a skilled manpower. I think what the government has to do it, when they will try to reduce or short size the department, many of them have to be laid off, you know, as part of the policy as well. But what the government can do as best is that to upskill them. Those who are young or those who are in the middle age, they can be trained in the primary skill, in secondary skill, and even in the higher skill as well, depending upon the potential and depending upon the qualification they have.
Won't that incur costs? Won't that incur costs?
The government can, you know, for it would cost. It would, of course, it would cost to the government as well. But the question is that then that skilled person can be usefully employed by the government within its own department, somewhere else, but he will have to. And this is very common all over the world now. You know, because with the introduction and with the rise of information technology, now the entire structure of the government has changed. The new concept of governance has come, which totally depends upon the acquisition of higher skills and professional competency. So we have to adopt those, you know, we have to adopt those values as well. The sooner we do it, the better it is. It is not a novelty in the present era.
A point well taken. Dr. SHUJAT FAROOQ, could digital transformation, going towards technology in order to improve the service efficiency, reduce costs and enhance transparency, could that also be something that could be thought upon, and could that work out for the desired results?
Yeah, you know that digital technology, you know, I think it should be everywhere. For example, you know that we can opt e-offices. So for example, if you go in, you know, that public offices, you will find the file culture. There are fitas, there are hierarchies. So file is moving, one letter is moving. So you know that e-office, you know that that is a big thing where you can transform the entire, you know, that even you can see the e-government. For example, if you are giving the driving license, if you are you know that issuing some birth registration, domicile, every public, I think, service delivery, that should be digitization. So in many countries you can see that it also changed the mind of the people, it also changed the behavior of the government. For example, if you right now if you go and interact with excise duty, police, health, you will face lot of that disappointment. So for example, if you move toward digital technology, look at the Nadra, that where we earlier we have the Shnakti card and now we have the Nadra, how the institute has transformed. Look at the motorway police. So this digitization, definitely that will reduce the corruption, that will improve efficiency and definitely build the trust of the public on government and institutions.
So how long do you think if we go about understanding the usefulness of these ministries, the finance minister has talked about bringing in the digital transformation, where do you look at in terms of scope of this particular phenomenon?
If you look the that policy formulation component of each of the ministry, I think every ministry should lead on its digital role. For example, look at agriculture. So in agriculture you require artificial technology. Go to education ministry, you require artificial intelligence. Go even to metrology department, you have data where you can sell the data, where you can use this data for agriculture productivity, for tourism, for many things. So scope of digitization that exists in every component of the government, because broadly the government mandate is to ease of doing business and reduce the cost of doing business.
Okay, so that brings us to another very interesting question. You said that with digital transformation, it is going to lead to the change of mind of the people as well as the behavior of the government, and the scope lies within all the ministries, right? So when we specifically talk about the mindset or the behavioral patterns which have developed over time, in how much time ideally do you think this particular induction of the digital technologies in almost all the ministries, how quickly people are susceptible to adapting to those?
Very interesting question, but that it depends on the commitment of the government, that how much you will take the time. For example, if you look the technology advancement over the last 10, 20 years, for example, 20 years ago, you cannot accept that we have the internet. You cannot assume that we have this cellular phone. So it depends that how robustly you transform your economy. For example, look at internet. For example, if we provide internet in each of the school, you can mobilize your little kids toward artificial intelligence, toward robotic technologies. So it depends on policies. So I think the big thing right now the government should do, beside education, beside health, that we should ensure internet in every school and in every street.
Right, Mr. Abdul Jaleel, digital transformation, do you think it could serve as an alternative mechanism when we talk about outsourcing the service-based positions or the functions of the ministries, or do you think both of these strategies should go in tandem?
I think the digital economy or digitalization, it is the need of the time. We cannot deny it, and we will have to adopt it under all circumstances. Right, number one. And number two, the government of Pakistan in previous year have carried out a lot of exercises in field of digitalization of data, especially in land revenue department, right? In land revenue department, and initially they have faced a lot of problem and resistance on the part of the people who were seeing a great debacle for, in their own interest. But the government in anyhow somehow able to force its will on it, and probably I believe now that Punjab government is working very successfully through digitalized data of revenue department. Likewise, Federal Board of Revenue has given us a good example of digitalization, although it is still halfway, and it would need 5 to 10 years as well if the government commits its resources as well as an expertise to achieve its aim. But without digitalization, you cannot achieve the high objective of good governance, which are constituted by efficiency, documentation, trustworthiness, responsiveness. Responsiveness, what the people need is fully responded in time, right? and then constitutionalism. I mean, whatever happened, it happened within the body of the law, and the body, and that is protected by the digital culture of the digitalization. So this, and there is another very important factor which needs to be understood. In days to come, those societies which do not adopt the culture of digitalization and do not provide the tool of digitalization to their citizens, to their functioning, will not be recognized as a successful state. They will be recognized as a failed state.
Got it. Dr. SHUJAT, FAROOQ, let's go to another aspect that I talked about in the introduction, that the United Arab Emirates has rolled over $2 billion. The Prime Minister has told the Federal Cabinet how big a respite at this particular point in time it is, and what does it depict about the bilateral, that very strength of that relationship?
You know that when we signed the IMF agreement in last year, the support of China, UAE and Saudi Arabia, that was quite crucial, because you know that these bilateral agreement, they are part of this IMF negotiation. This year the government has paid around $10 billion external debt, and in next 6 years they have to pay around another $10 billion. So this rescheduling, definitely it will you know that create cushion for the government. And this year, you know that if you look our external statistics, that is quite healthy. We have current account surplus, especially remittances, they are emerging. This year we are expecting that our remittances would be more than even exports, and these factors, I think reserves would increase. And if you look the exchange rate over the last 1 year, so our exchange rate practically it has a value. So it have improved.
Unfortunately, I hadn't the chance of taking your understanding regarding as to the recent bullish trend, that very record-breaking trend at the Pakistan stock exchanges. What's your understanding about that? And what is that basically indicative of?
I think it is indicative of certain government policies. And first you can see the policy rate, because the government has significantly reduced the policy rate over the last 6-7 months. So right now it is 13%. So definitely now have people the choice either to place amount in banks or in invest in the stock market. I would prefer that let's strengthen our stock market, because you know that when people would invest in stock market, it will grow the business. Second, I think there are certain government policies on the real estate that is now diverting the funds from real estate to stock market. And you know that stock market basically it show the confidence of the investors as well as that business community on government policies as well as whatever is market happening in the market. So right now we have certain so it reflects that the confidence of our business community that is improving over the time.
Right, Mr. Abdul Jaleel, now the Prime Minister has talked about reducing the electricity cost, also saying unless the cost of energy is brought down, our industry and exports cannot grow. The government has come up with 2 to 3 different options to reduce the electricity prices, which will be implemented. And in that particular regard, the government should also go to the International Monetary Fund in that particular regard. What could be the possible options in order to reduce electricity for the economy to grow and the industry and exports also at the same time?
We all know that without availability of energy at a reasonable cost, you cannot bring about and achieve the objective of industrial revolution in your country. And we have our country, our industrial sector, heavy industrial sector, suffered a lot on account of the the steep rising of the energy prices in the country. So the government, I think the government has now taken serious note of it, and they are thinking about the options. And there are good options are available as well. I think we, by ignoring the idle source of energy, we have done a lot of damage to our own self. This is one area which should give us, which the government should give a top priority to it, because it will provide energy, it will provide also the water resource for irrigation of our farmland as well. And that is, it serves the two purposes as well. And the energy will be available at a very reasonable cost to everybody. So this is an area in which I think that the
so
government...
in the immediate term, what is required at the particular time? Because
I
when you
think
talk
the
of
solar,
the
solar
hydel
and
energy,
wind
it seems to be a long-term understanding, the reflection, the deliberation, and then implementation over these sort of projects.
Solar energy system,
So
it has been adopted by the people.
What about that particular, when Prime Minister says that we have to approach the International
And
Monetary
wind
Fund for the
energy.
negotiations on this particular matter, because we've seen that concern, the continuous, consistent concern on the part of the International Monetary Fund also regarding the energy costs. Also, the tariffs were revisited in the recent past as well. The next review with the IMF is expected in February. So what do you expect? What could be the possible options in the immediate term when the government approaches the IMF? What could be the possible strategies in that regard to impress upon the IMF officials that a reduction in electricity cost is required to have the exports and industry grow?
That's the main key factor of our economic development. The high cost of energy will definitely downgrade our industrial production in the country, number one, and joblessness, again, it will have a consequential effect. Right? And it will also push inflation up. And the low production will definitely affect our export as well. So this is an area in which the government has got a very strong case as well. And the California is one of the richest states of United States of America. Its 90% of energy needs are met through wind energy system. Right, and then you can take the example of Holland as well. Holland. In this is a, I mean, it is for the planning ministry to think over it and seek collaboration with the department, and the World Bank will have to be involved because it's a long-term.
Your point is well taken. I have to end the show over here. Your quick comment, if you want to make, Dr. SHUJAT, FAROOQ, the reduction of electricity costs.
You know that we are right now taking austerity measures. We cannot give subsidies, so we cannot reduce the cost of electricity on the basis of subsidies. There are few things. First, you know that right now government have adjusted the tariff with 8 IPPs. It will give them 238 billion cushion. Second, you know that we are going to adjust tariff with another 16 IPPs, so there would be cushion around 500 billion. Second, discos efficiency. There are around 970 billion losses. First, third.
Dr. SHUJAT FAROOQ, Chief of Research Pakistan Institute of Development Economics, thank you very much for being with us. Unfortunately, we are short of time. I'll have to end the show right over here. Mr. ABDUL, Senior Economist, joining us in the studio. Thank you very much for your time also for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. With that, we come to the end of today's episode. Till the next one, take good care of yourselves.